Okay, good afternoon. For those of you who are just joining us, my name is Dina Van Dolfsen, and I am the TESOL instructor at Vancouver International College Career Campus. So this afternoon, I just have a short little thing for you guys about using breakout rooms in ESL online teaching, essentially. So first of all, why would we use breakout rooms? For many, many reasons. The first one being variation. If you are just doing online synchronous in the main video room with everyone, it gets boring. If your online class has too much asynchronous work and you're not getting face-to-face time with teacher and classmates, that's not good for English language learning either. So breakout rooms add to the variation of the types of classes you can have. It's about relationship building, especially if you've never previously met in a classroom setting in this online world. It's really hard to build a relationship from student to student or teacher to student in the big array when there's 9 or 10 little faces in boxes that you're looking at all the time. So using breakout rooms can improve student to student relationships and teacher to student relationships. When you get small groups or pair work times, we can build those relationships much, much easier in breakout rooms. Obviously, in a language class, we want increased interaction. We want more student talking time. How do students learn to speak English? By speaking English. So in a whole class setting, only one person can speak at a time. But if we have students in breakout rooms, if we've got 6 breakout rooms, that means 6 different people can be speaking at a time. So that's really, really important. And that's why we love breakout rooms. Differentiation is also important. There are some language learning tasks where you don't want your higher level students helping your lower level students. When you have mixed level classes, sometimes on certain tasks, you want the high level students with the high level students and the low level students with the low level students. And you can do that functionally with the breakout room. With breakout rooms, it works really, really well. Next is privacy. Sometimes a student wants to pull you aside to chat for a minute. That happens for real in the classroom, and that can happen in an online classroom too, just using the breakout room function. So lots of great reasons to use breakout rooms. They function really well. Are there any drawbacks to breakout rooms? Absolutely. Breakout rooms are not perfect, and it's much, much harder to control separate groupings online than it is in a real classroom. So you have to build or have student trust. So that's maturity. That can be an age thing. Are they old enough to really do it? And are they mature enough? If we're talking about some teenage classes, can you trust them? And can you trust them to stay focused? That even happens with adult students. So if you assign a breakout room, please discuss this topic in pairs, then you're monitoring as you jump in and out of all the different breakout rooms. You're going to find that some students are off topic, or they finished already. They've discussed it all. That'll happen in the real life classroom too. So, but it's just a matter of how often it's working and whether you can get good content out of students when you come back to the whole class setting to maybe share what they drew, what they discussed, that sort of thing. So always try and find ways to make sure they got the value out of what they needed to discuss, and make sure they're obviously staying in English. You can get them to stay in English by making sure, when you can, if you have an international class, assigning mixed language groups in the breakout groups. So if you've got a Japanese, a Korean, a Mexican, and a Brazilian all in one group, then they're going to have to speak English, that sort of thing. But yeah, student trust, maturity, and focus is big. Sometimes if you're teaching low-level students, younger students, you're going to have to be choosy about how often to use breakout rooms. Next point is student tech savvy, because often with breakout rooms, we're sharing information, sharing content that they need, maybe in a Google Doc form or Hyperdoc, or we're sending them to another website to work on from that breakout room with their partners, that sort of thing. So you need to make sure the students are tech savvy enough to do all of these things at once. I've taught older adults, and that can be challenging. I've done one-on-one computer tutoring after class sometimes to get the students up to speed in this new online world for a lot of them. So yeah, just make sure that it's going to work. Part of that is making sure they have the good computer and internet, but that should be done before they sign up for your class anyways. Next point is about the teacher giving clear instructions, clear expectations. If you want the most efficacy out of the students' time in the breakout rooms, they need to know what they're doing with clear instructions, and they need to know what they're expected to achieve. So if it's discussion, give them some goals in the discussion. Don't just say discuss. Find 5 common things. Come up with 3 possible solutions. Find 3 things you agree on, 2 things you disagree on, that sort of thing. Those will lead to more effective discussions in the classroom. So same thing with breakout rooms, give their discussion goals, that sort of thing. And again, if they're doing a group work task and building something, how much are they expected to get done in the 10 minutes you're going to put them in breakout rooms, that sort of thing. So clear instructions, clear expectations will make breakout rooms function better. And as a teacher, you need to learn the functions of whatever system you are using. The one I'm most familiar with is Zoom. That's what I've been using for all my online teaching. So it has some amazing function. It has here, you can see the broadcast function. So you can broadcast a message, instructions to all of the classes. I often do time warning, 5 minute left, and then they have the function when you close the breakout rooms, there's 60 seconds left or 30 seconds left, I can't remember. But they also have the chat function. You can chat to students in breakout rooms and polling, that sort of thing. So learn the functions of the program you're using. All right, so yes, there's some drawbacks. Yes, it's wonderful. What are you going to do in breakout rooms? I was surprised when I first moved into online teaching how many of our sort of traditional ESL tasks travel well. They work well in breakout rooms. One of my favorite tasks are jigsaw tasks. So when you have just for those of you who don't know jigsaw is a longer reading or listening task that has been chopped into sections, like an A, a B, a C, and a D. And so I put 4 students in group A, 4 students in group B, C, and D, and those are expert groups. Those 4 students have to read that text, talk to each other, make sure they fully understand section A of the text, because after a given amount of time, those students are going to be rearranged into groups with an A, B, C, D in one group, and then they have to share their section of the test, because those other students in the group, if I was A, they saw parts B, C, and D. I didn't see B, C, and D. So as the expert in A, I have to tell all the other students what was in the A section of the text. So with breakout rooms, it's really functional, really easy to manage a traditional jigsaw task. If you're doing listening, you just have to provide the links to the groups where they need to listen. So it works well, translates well. Running dictations are also a familiar ESL classroom task and work really, really, really well in breakout rooms as well. So in a running dictation, traditionally in the classroom, it's a pair work task. One student is the writer and the other student is the runner. So a piece of text, a selection of text, it could be a drawing or something like that, 2 instructions, whatever, is set up far in the classroom or outside the classroom, taped to a wall somewhere. And the runner runs to the content, reads it, gets the information, comes back and says it to their partner who has to write it down. So usually a section of reading tests has to write correct sentences. How do you do that with breakout rooms? Well, what they do is they go in and out of breakout rooms. So the writing partner stays in the breakout room. The runner comes to the main part of the video conferencing, and the teacher passes the information along. Could be just by holding it up or sharing the screen or just telling them. We love running dictations in class, especially with younger level students, because it can use up some of their energy if they've been sitting in the classroom for a long section of the day. And you can still get that functionality, because it's still needed, in online teaching format. So I've had my students do like 5 or 6 jumping jacks before they get their next section of text, just to do that, add that physicality aspect back in, even though they're not running inside their home. Next one is called a four corners debate. Those are when you have a topic and you group students into strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. Well, you can group them or they can choose. How do they feel? So those 4 agreement groups go and discuss their arguments, how they're going to debate, what they're going to do. Then we come back to the classroom and have a full class debate. Icebreakers, we talked about building relationships. So again, building relationships is done through icebreaker tasks in the early days, and those work better in pairs or small groups, and we can use the breakout groups to do that. Mingle task, so many good mingle tasks. I love a mingle task in the classroom, and I was worried before I started online teaching that it wouldn't work, but with a breakout room function, it really, really does. So you can easily move a student from one group to another group. So Danny and John were paired, and Brandon and Kim were paired, and I'm going to move John here with Kim, and Brandon's going to go to my group 3 or whatever, that sort of thing, or I can just exchange. So by learning the teacher controls, the breakout room controls, we can easily on a set time schedule move students from one group to another. So it's almost like your traditional speed dating task or something like that. Works really, really well. Also, teacher feedback. So if the students have just done a mini presentation or answered questions or something like that, and you want to give one-to-one feedback, that works well in breakout rooms while the rest of the class can stay back and do something in the main video conferencing. Often in playing games, I need to show cues. Often it's just a word I can type in the video or in the chat function from me privately to one student. But if I want to show a picture cue with a flashcard or Google Slides, that sort of thing, or if a lower level student maybe doesn't know the word, you want to show the picture or something like that. So if we're doing Pictionary or gesture game or whatever, often I'll show the cue separately in a breakout room, so then the other people can do the guessing game when we get back and the student gives the hints. Pair work obviously works well, so that can be everything from discussions to buddy reading where the students read to each other. That works really well with low-level students who don't have confidence in speaking tasks. Answer check, pair share, pair feedback, where students give yourself feedback to each other, that sort of thing. I've done this a lot with many different tasks. I mean, it works for grammar, checking the answers to a worksheet. It works in pronunciation where they listen to each other do tongue twisters, or they work together to create a tongue twister with target sounds. When they have to create example sentences using a target vocabulary word, so much pair work can be easily done in breakout rooms. The biggest thing is for you as a teacher, cycle through, monitor, pop in, don't make it predictable, and then you can build that student trust when the students keep doing the tasks and staying on target. And or make one pair who might be your trouble pair, their breakout room is actually the main session, so you can kind of check on them a little bit more if need be. And finally, group work. So group work could be stations or choices. Maybe you've done a target grammar thing and there's different types of practice tasks. So you can let them choose which group do you want to go to. Group A is doing this, group B is doing that, and then breakout rooms match that. Or stations. So let's click this. And I need to reshare because now you can't see that screen. There we go. So here's a Hyperdoc. It's a Google Slides doc. So this teacher made for virtual station rotation. So she's got a teacher-led station, an online station, an offline station, an extension activity. And here she has different groups are coming to the teacher-led station at different times. So obviously these groups also know when they're in the other stations, that sort of thing. And for each of the station, the teacher has provided objectives, standards, core statements, as well as please come prepared with the following. So again, this is just a template document, but it's what we talked about earlier, good instructions, good expectations about what's going to happen in the breakout room, just like with a stations activity, virtual stations. And again, something like the virtual stations, something like breakout rooms, we're often connecting it with other tech, whether it's a Hyperdoc or you're sending them to an online quiz website, or you're got a test in a Google form, that sort of thing. Make sure your students are tech savvy enough to be able to move through all of those things. All right, that's what I have for you this afternoon. That's why I like breakout rooms with online language teaching. Thanks for listening.